This is my live cast for the recording of my podcast, and I am preparing for recording of the podcast now, and I'm doing this with you out there. I'm Hidemi Woods. I'm a singer and songwriter based in Japan, and I host a podcast called Talking and Reading from Japan. And today is my recording day of that podcast. And this is the preparation for my actual recording. And I'm doing this with you. So this is sort of behind the scene of Talking and Reading from Japan by Hidemi Woods. I hope you enjoy being with me while I'm preparing for my podcast. And actually, I'm recording my podcast. The entire process is on livecast, and I hope you enjoy it with me. So now, before I record today's podcast, I need to do some preparation beforehand. For example, I rehearse rehearse part of the recording, like pre-reading of today's episode, and think of the title of today's episode, and I will start recording my podcast. And as a preparation, before I reading casually today's episode, I think I'm gonna explain a little bit of my podcast itself. It's a reading of my book that I wrote. I wrote some memoirs based on my real experiences of current daily life and my childhood in Kyoto, where I was born and I grew up. And in my podcast, I read one episode from the books I wrote, one episode at a time, and I talk about it, or talk about anything that I just feel like talking before in front of the camera. And that's the content of my podcast. And I on a regular basis do this live cast before I record the podcast and show you the behind the scene of it. Now, let's get on to business of today. As usual, I will record 2 podcasts, which means I read. I do the reading of 2 episodes from one book. That is, today's book is The Girl in Kyoto by Hidemi Woods. This is one of my memoirs I wrote. And today I chose 2 episodes. And I record each of it by reading it and talk about it. Okay. So as a preparation from now, I do some pre-reading for today's recording. The first one goes like this. Just showing me my pre-reading with you. New Year is the biggest holiday in Japan. There is a traditional meal for it, which is called osechi. It's assorted foods of beans, boiled vegetables, boiled fish, and steamed fish paste, boxed in layered containers. The kinds of an assortment are slightly different at each family, according to the family tradition. My family's traditional osechi was absolutely terrible. The assortment consisted of only 3 kinds of food: boiled carrots, boiled burdocks, and black soybeans. That's it. We even didn't have to buy them except for black soybeans because they were grown in our family's field. It was accompanied by miso soup that had sticky rice cake and big taro in it. Big taro was grown in our front yard, and my family held a superstition that you would become head of something by eating it in the new year. Unfortunately, it's huge and painfully tasteless. As a child, I always wondered how they could call them a New Year's special feast, since our daily meals were better. To conclude the feast, we drank special tea, a cup of Japanese tea with a pickled plum sunk in the bottom. As another superstition, my family believed that it would bring happiness, but it tasted horrible and made me unhappy right away. And then, what I thought couldn't be any worse hit the new bottom. On one New Year's Day, there was a new addition to our traditional meal. It was called kuwai and looked like a chestnut with a sprout. My mother heard that eating it in New Year made you sprout to the world. It became her new superstition, and my father began to grow it in the front yard. It tasted utterly awful. If primitive people found it in the woods and tried it, they would certainly dismiss it as inedible. Although I had endured the terrible feast until I left home, I'm not ahead of anything, nor do I sprout to the world. This is today's episode I'm gonna record. And now I need to think of the title of this episode. What should it be? Traditional. The New 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 Year's special feast. Okay, it will be New Year's special feast, and not to forget, I need to write down New Year special feast. Now that I think I finished preparing for an actual recording, now I'll start my podcast of the day. Okay. First, I turn on the camera. Are you still there? Okay, it's done. Now it's time to record my podcast. After I finish recording, I'll come back to you, and I'll take your questions or comments. So I'd be grateful if you give me some comments or questions or anything you feel like talking to me. But while I'm recording, I'm afraid I will not be able to respond to your interactions. So just record my podcast together. Shall we? Okay. Then see you a little bit later, though you are seeing me the whole process. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna start now. Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan by Hidemi Woods. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. Here, I read episodes from the books I wrote and talk about them or anything I feel like talking to you. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I will read an episode from one of my books titled The Girl in Kyoto. This book is one of my memoirs I wrote, and every episode is actual experience of mine. Today's episode is called New Year's Special Feast. This is about my family's traditional meal that we ate during the New Year's holiday. New Year's special treat. New Year is the biggest holiday in Japan. There is a traditional meal for it, which is called osechi. It's assorted foods of beans, boiled vegetables, boiled fish, and steamed fish paste, boxed in layered containers. The kinds of an assortment are slightly different at each family according to the family tradition. My family's traditional osechi was absolutely terrible. The assortment consisted of only 3 kinds of food: boiled carrots, boiled burdocks, and black soybeans. That's it. We even didn't have to buy them except for black soybeans because they were grown in our family's field. It was accompanied by miso soup that had sticky rice cake and big taro in it. Big taro was grown in our front yard, and my family held a superstition that you would become head of something by eating it in the new year. Unfortunately, it's huge and painfully tasteless. As a child, I always wondered how they could call them a New Year's special feast since our daily meals were better. To conclude the feast, we drank special tea. A cup of Japanese tea with a pickled plum sunk in the bottom. As another superstition, my family believed that it would bring happiness, but it tasted horrible and made me unhappy right away. And then, what I thought couldn't be any worse hit the new bottom. On one New Year's Day, there was a new addition to our traditional meal. It was called kuwai and looked like a chestnut with a sprout. My mother heard that eating it in New Year made you sprout to the world. It became her new superstition, and my father began to grow it in the front yard. It tasted utterly awful. If primitive people found it in the woods and tried it, they would certainly dismiss it as inedible. Although I had endured the terrible feast until I left home, I'm not ahead of anything, nor do I sprout to the world. That was today's episode. The New Year holiday is the biggest holiday in Japan. And our family celebrated it with the special meal for 3 days. It's from January 1st to January 3rd. So every day, as breakfast, we ate that special feast. But our family's traditional special feast was far from what is called feast. because it's so terribly it was unbelievably taste so bad and so miserable, although it's New Year, and I really hated it. And although I looked forward to the New Year, the only thing I felt so unhappy about it was every breakfast during the New Year's holiday, because our family's osechi was coming. Maybe because I grew up in Kyoto, that was the west part of Japan, and it's a very an old city, historical city, and so the tradition is relatively old as well. So maybe that was part of the reason why our family's traditional New Year's feast was so outdated and old style. And also because my family was a farmer, and so vegetables were everywhere, both on our family's fields and in our front yard. So to my family, it's the ingredients are so handy. We didn't have to go shopping or go shopping for the traditional feast. We just needed to pick them up and cook it. That's it. But lately, Japanese people style to celebrate that New Year's meal has changed dramatically. They eat very expensive osechi. It's an annual big sale for supermarkets or restaurants, and they make a reservation for it and have it delivered to their home. And it's really expensive, and it costs usually around $100 to $300, and it's basically it's a box lunch, and box 2 or 3 boxes are layered, and each box is separated by small section, and each section holds a small amount of special, expensive delicatessen, and it's a variety of. It's an assortment of an, something expensive that we don't have so often on a daily basis. So it has usually it has shrimp or some seafoods or expensive ham or anything like that. But in my family, we had never had something like that fancy assortment box. We just, as I said, we just picked some carrots and burdocks from the field, and my grandmother and my mother boiled them and sprinkled some sesame seeds, and that's it. See, as you imagine, it's tasteless completely. And my family's feast was also formed by as a layered boxes, but it's 3-layered, and it had 3 boxes, but it didn't. Each box wasn't divided by a section because it didn't have to. One kind in one box. So there were no varieties in our boxed assortment. So we didn't have to separate by section. And so there were 3 boxes, and one box was a sea of carrots, and second one was sea of burdocks, and the third one was just black soybeans that my grandmother boiled and simmered in sugar and water. So black soybeans were the best one among other things during New Year's in my family. And I just, beside the boxed assortment feast, there was a cup of miso soup. And that was another torture for me because it tasted terrible as well. Miso soup was okay, but the contents are the problem. What it's called ozoni in Japanese, and the sticky rice cake is called mochi. That's the that's okay, relatively, depending on miso soup's taste. But taro is a big problem. It's too big to be simmered by any tasteful ingredients. So it's just it was too big in the first place. So it's like a contest or a torture to finish it. But my family was so superstitious for everything. And so especially the New Year was important to superstitious people like my family because it decides everything for the whole year. So if you cry during the New Year, you will cry for the whole year. So if you say it's terrible while you are eating, you will say it over and over again during the whole year. So no matter how bad it tasted for me, I couldn't say it because it's a bad omen. So while I was eating such a bad taste food in my mouth, I had to be smiling as if I were happy. And finishing a big taro took so much time for breakfast. And I just, why I should endure this torture in the most celebrative event of the year, like New Year. That was the biggest question, one of the biggest questions I had in my childhood. And but as a superstitious, especially my mother was so superstitious. So she urged me to finish a big taro or that terrible, awful kuai, because that would make me successful for anything. Eating taro meant becoming ahead of something. Eating kuai meant sprouting to the world. My mother firmly believed it. So she pretty much ordered that I should finish it. And every year I followed her instruction and finished it while I was crying in my mind. On the face I was smiling, but it was such an agony to finish my New Year's special feast. And then look, I was I right now, although I endured those things for the entire my childhood, I hadn't sprout in the world for anything. I am nobody. I'm not ahead of anything, anywhere. So I just eating those terrible, horrible, bad taste New Year's special feast meant just torture for me. It turned out to be this way. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed with me. If you are interested in anything else I created, like my music or my books, you can visit my website, hidemiwoods.com, HIDEMI woods.com, where you can find all links to my songs, my books, my blogs, my podcasts, my audiobooks, anything, even my even merchandise that I designed and that features my own illustrations. So if you like, visit there. Well, thanks again. Thanks for listening. I'm Hidemi Woods. Until next time, take care and be well. Okay, my recording is done. The first one is done. The second one is coming. Was a little rusty, but well, it's went rather better than usual. Anyway, are you still there? If you are sticking to this podcast recording, I really appreciate it. I'm going to start the preparation for the second recording now. And so I hope you do the preparation and recording with me again, with me. Second episode I am reading is about Saint Valentine's Day. It's a little off event. It's already May, so. But did you celebrate it? A Japanese way of celebrating Saint Valentine's Day is quite unique. So, okay. Second episode is like this. I start preparation for pre-reading by pre-reading it first. In Japan, St. Valentine's Day is the day that women give chocolate to men. When I was a freshman at high school, I had a big crush on my math teacher and gave him a handmade chocolate cake on Valentine's Day. I wasn't interested in cooking at all and never helped my grandmother and my mother in the kitchen. Although cooking was an unknown territory for me, I decided to make a chocolate cake on a whim. It turned out to be way harder and more time-consuming than I thought. I made 2 cakes and chose the better-looking one for the teacher. And the other to be stored in the fridge for my family and myself. I handed the cake to the teacher at school and was so happy because he seemed pleased. I came home in a good mood and tried the other cake in the fridge myself. My good mood was extinguished on the spot. It tasted horrible. I'd never had such a terrible cake before and haven't since. Of course, I tasted it to make sure while cooking, but I did so for chocolate icing, not for sponge cake. As you know, chocolate can't go wrong, but sponge cake possibly can. I felt awful imagining the teacher was having the vicious cake with his colleagues or his family on Valentine's Day. This is the second episode I'm gonna record today. Next, I decide to what to call it, the title of it. And I think the title will be The Vicious Cake. How about it? To tell you the truth, I still remember that cake I made was really vicious. I don't exaggerate it. It was vicious. The vicious cake. Now that I finished pre-reading and deciding the title of the episode, now I'm gonna start recording the second podcast of the day. As I said before, after I finished recording this podcast, I'll come back to you and take your comments or questions. You can answer anything about Japan or Japanese daily life or Japanese culture. I think I can answer all the questions you have, except for something I don't know, of course. So after the recording, I hope I can interact with you. And so I appreciate if you would give me some comments. Thank you. So let's start recording now with me together, shall we? Okay. I'll start with by turning on the camera at first. Camera. Okay, it's done. And okay. Now the recording is starting. See you a little bit later. Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan by Hidemi Woods. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. I read some episodes from the books I wrote and talk about them or anything I feel like talking. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I'll read one episode from the book I wrote titled The Girl in Kyoto. This book is one of the memoirs I wrote, and each episode is my actual experience. Today's episode is called The Vicious Cake. It's about the cake I made for a math teacher. The Vicious Cake. In Japan, St. Valentine's Day is the day that women give chocolate to men. When I was a freshman at high school, I had a big crush on my math teacher and gave him a handmade chocolate cake on Valentine's Day. I wasn't interested in cooking at all and never helped my grandmother and my mother in the kitchen. Although cooking was an unknown territory for me, I decided to make a chocolate cake on a whim. It turned out to be way harder and more time-consuming than I thought. I made 2 cakes and chose the better-looking one for the teacher and the other to be stored in the fridge for my family and myself. I handed the cake to the teacher at school and was so happy because he seemed pleased. I came home in a good mood and tried the other cake in the fridge myself. My good mood was extinguished on the spot. It tasted horrible. I'd never had such a terrible cake before and haven't since. Of course, I tasted it to make sure while cooking, but I did so for chocolate icing, not for sponge cake. As you know, chocolate can't go wrong, but sponge cake possibly can. I felt awful imagining the teacher was having the vicious cake with his colleagues or his family on Valentine's Day. That was today's episode. This episode happened when I was in high school and when I had a big crush on my math teacher. At that time, he was about 40 years old, and he was so handsome. And of course, he was smart, thin, and always he was wearing a three-piece suit, and he just looked so handsome, and I really looked forward the math class, and before the math class, before and while during the math class, my heart was pounding because that handsome man was in front of the on the front of the in the classroom in front of me, talking and teaching. So it's like, to me, it was like dreaming, not learning. But I wanted to be his favorite. So I studied math so hard. To this day, I hadn't studied so diligently. No, that was while he was my math teacher. I was the best student who studied so hard, so diligently, so earnestly. And as a result, before he was I had a different math teacher. I was so poor on math, but my marks on math jumped up, and every examination, I almost every time scored full marks, because just not to be good at math or not to pursue a career in mathematics, just to become his favorite. And the best subject I was able to score had been English before that, but that math teacher changed it, and mathematics was the best, became the best I could do. And actually, in the end, I liked math itself, disregarding the teacher. Just he taught me the charm of mathematics as a result. And I had a crush on him, but after that, I had a crush on mathematics itself. Anyway, on that St. Valentine's Day, I handed my handmade cake to him. It's so embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. It's an awfully embarrassing memory. One of the embarrassing memories of mine. So it's hard to recall it. But as you can imagine, I was young and stupid enough to do that audacity, and I made a cake and gave it to him as a gift. So embarrassing. But he was pleased, so I was happy until I had been happy until I tasted the cake by myself, and I still don't know. I still don't figure out why it went that wrong. It tasted terrible. I wonder what I put into sponge so that it came out as that degree of bad taste. How could a person make sponge cake that bad? I still can't figure it out. I think I baked it correctly because it was soft, looked nice, but the taste, how could it go so wrong with sugar and butter? I still don't know, because I haven't challenged it again. I haven't baked any cake since then. But in that degree, it was so bad. and I still feel sorry for my math teacher because I made him eat or possibly throw it out. Back then, it still is, I guess, a Japanese way of celebrating St. Valentine's Day was unique. St. Valentine's Day in Japan was the day that women showed her feelings to men. It was the day that women were forgiven to show their affection toward men. So giving men a chocolate meant she loved him. So in those days, at that time, boys or men were competing with the number of chocolates they received, because that told how popular they were. It's back then it was somehow a new trend in Japan, because my father didn't know that that event, that way of celebrating St. Valentine's Day. So it's relatively a new event in Japan back then. But now it has changed a little bit, like more like social social thing. For instance, it's not serious love relationship, affection and telling day, but it's just socially like at an office, female workers hand out to male workers to probably smooth out the work relationship between them, which I don't know in details since I haven't worked at an office, but probably so. And so lately it has been less serious, but back then was more serious, more tense event for women. and I just used that event to show how much I loved my math teacher to him, and I flopped big time. But anyway, my crush was gone because I was graduated and haven't seen him since. But I still remember how handsome he was, and love for mathematics remains in me, because I just 3 years of high school. I spent 3 years of high school almost totally dedicated those 3 years for mathematics, for studying mathematics. And I just gradually I found myself that I loved math more than the teacher. I thought I had a big crush on him, and I thought I was studying mathematics for him. But gradually, my teacher didn't matter to me. Just studying mathematics gave me such rapture, such joy, and I just couldn't stop studying mathematics. It's kind of addiction, I think. In hindsight, I was addicted to math, and I loved to challenge and try to solve the difficult question, difficult problem, difficult math theme, and I used to tackle it all day, or sometimes for a week. And during that time, just for solving one question, I took a piece of paper in a plastic bag, and I floated it in a bathtub. And while I was taking a bath, I was keeping to solve that question. And I just couldn't stop solving the question, because it was so fun. And so practically all the time I was awake, I was solving some questions of math. But I didn't become a mathematician. because I chose a career as a musician. So, but if I were not to be a singer-songwriter, I might would have been a mathematician in a different verse. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. Just in case you are interested in my other materials, you can visit hidemiwoods.com, hidemi.com, where the links to my other books, my songs, and my blogs, podcasts, and merchandise I design are available at that on that website. So if you like, visit there. Again, thanks for listening. Until next time, take care and be well. Okay, it's done. Today's whole recording was done now. There's a comment from Storyteller. It was from memory and little bit heartbreaking thing, I guess. Yes, it's a heartbreaking thing. Yeah, yes, maybe so. Thanks for giving me a comment. I think to me it's a fun or heartbreaking rather than fun or heartbreaking, but just too embarrassing memory for me, that when you are young you tend to be stupid, tend to do things that unimaginably awkward and clumsy, and especially I am a clumsy, awkward person, so my memories are full of those embarrassing ones, and yeah, those embarrassing things, clumsy things are chasing me all the time. It accompanies me every step I take. So, whatever I do, something embarrassing follows. And I always wanted to be, I still want to be a cool person, but that is so much far-fetched desire. Being a cool person is much more difficult, I think, than going to space or something. It's the farthest thing for me. And as a clumsy person, uh, my entire life is full of uh, embarrassing experiences. So the only good thing about it is that I was able to write a lot of memoirs about them and publish them. Writing them and publishing them was a pleasure, a big, huge joy for me. But I showed my embarrassments everywhere by publishing them. It's good. My books are not big sale because those books are full of my embarrassments. Those who just came in, turn on this live cast. I'm a singer-songwriter based in Japan, and on a regular basis, I do this live cast as a rehearsal of my recording of the podcast I host. And I'd appreciate if you follow me on this platform, Beagle Live and YouTube. If you follow me, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks. It's in Japan, spring is the beginning of new life for many people. Like in Japan, school begins in spring, in April. Japanese school year starts in April and ends in March. So many students began the new grade this spring, and for people who finished school, they start working in April, and so Japanese people's life is quite changing during spring. So I wonder they are adjusting well in a new working or studying environment, because I hear sometimes some people are struggling to adapt the new environment. Of course, adapting to a non environment is not easy for anyone. So hang in there, people who are just adjusting now. Well, I'm here, as I said, I'm here on a regular basis. So I hope you come back here and join me again and do my podcast recording together. I really hope so. Until next time, you are You take care of yourself, okay? And see you soon here again. Storyteller gives me a comment again. Thanks. See you again. Okay, see you again. Thanks. Okay, and until next time. Bye for now. さよなら。